We got Zero Hedge put this story out, and I think it's very, very telling. And it brought up so much inside of me that I want to see what you guys are thinking. We may or may not have time for calls. Hopefully we will. But if we don't, please feel free to write in on this subject. The headline from the Epoch Times today, September 1st, 2021. Amid sanctions, Taliban expected to double down on drug trafficking. Drug trafficking and the Taliban. Now, I don't know if something has changed, how fundamentally the Taliban have changed since the last time we thought about them as a majority stakeholder in the power struggle out there in Afghanistan. But we knew that the Taliban would ritualistically and regularly destroy poppy crops because of the drug situation and how that was against their makeup, especially their religious ideologies. So all of a sudden we're getting this Taliban expected to double down on drug trafficking. Like, this is weird. Very weird. Let's keep going. As the world watches events in Afghanistan unfold, many have started to wonder what the Taliban rule means for the future of the country's opium production. Afghanistan is the world's largest producer of the opium poppy, which is the raw material for heroin, one of the world's deadliest drugs. The country accounted for nearly 83% of global opium production between 2015 and 2020. 83%. And we just walked away from that? That's what I'm getting at here. According to estimates of the UN Office on Drugs and Crime, and it's a key supplier for heroin markets across Europe and Asia, the U.S. military presence failed to curtail opium production throughout the Afghan country. Failed to curtail. The U.S. military presence failed to curtail opium production throughout the Afghan countryside for 2 decades. Opiate economy, which includes cultivation of poppy, processing into heroin, and trafficking, has been a major source of cash for Afghanistan. Boy, are the people at the Epoch Times really this stupid? Despite its anti-heroin, I had to highlight this part. Despite its anti-heroin rhetoric, the Taliban has benefited greatly from this opium poppy economy and become a major player in the world's drug trade. They are not major players in the world drug trade unless the CIA allows them to be. We are the players. In its first official press conference in Kabul, the Taliban pledged to end opium cultivation in Afghanistan in an effort to gain acceptance from the international community. Quote, "Today, when we entered Kabul, we saw a large number of our youth who were sitting under bridges or next to walls, and they were using narcotics. This was so unfortunate," Taliban spokesperson, Mujahideen, told reporters on August 17th. "From now on, Afghanistan will be a narcotics-free country, but it needs international assistance," he said, adding that foreign aid is needed to help Afghan farmers switch to alternative crops. Afghanistan is noted for its high-quality fruits, including pomegranates, grapes, melons. Various international organizations in the past have helped Afghan families grow pomegranates, for example, as an important alternative to opium. Despite the agriculture sector and rich mineral resources, the country has been critically dependent on foreign aid, which has dried up with Taliban takeover. International donors have been providing 75% of Afghan government's operating budget, and now here you have it. Biden administration froze nearly $9 billion in Afghan government reserves that were held in the United States. We were talking about that, cash and gold. The International Monetary Fund also blocked Afghanistan from receiving $440 million in funds that were scheduled to be sent earlier. And German government announced suspension of $300 million in development and budgeted for this year, development aid. Financial sanctions also make it difficult for international organizations to provide humanitarian aid to Afghan families. Hence, the country is expected to drift into the humanitarian and financial crisis soon, according to experts. Immediate effects of the financial squeeze So pretty much they're saying they may have to go to poppy production, finding them facing significant losses of political capital and violent opposition. Now, this is trillions of dollars. This is trillions of dollars worth of drugs. We were told that by first-hand account on this show, by one of the first boots on the ground out there in Afghanistan in 2002. Back then it was at least $1 trillion a year trade in just a shadow economy, black market. Trillions. It's all profit. It's all profit for what we were told is a defunct band of tribal religious zealots. Now it's just it's all theirs. There's no cashing in on any of that if you are not working and playing ball with the powers that be, if you know what I mean. So they say they have $90 billion now about in American military equipment and piles of cash, and they have a multi-trillion-dollar drug operation going on right now. And you think that they care about sanctions? $9 billion that's sitting in a New York Federal Reserve that's being held from the Taliban? Who cares? $300 million from Germany, the IMF holding back. They don't need any of that stuff. They don't need any. It's just my take. It might be a bad take. I don't know. And obviously none of us will ever know the full truth about anything out there, but we got enough pieces. This one thing over here, look, despite its anti-heroin rhetoric, the Taliban has benefited greatly from this opium poppy economy and became a major player in the world's drug trade. We are the drug trade. You know, for the U.S. to say we seized $8 billion in gold and cash reserves and $300 million in Germany, they get to take that money off their books. That's relief for Germany. That's relief for Germany. They get to take $300 million off their books, and now all the real money can go unaccounted for. You know, I had a buddy sent in this. I was talking to a friend of mine before, and he sent this in to me. He said, Frankie, the Taliban know. They have now learned how to play the game. Nobody gets to shut down the shadow economic system. It's worth billions, if not trillions. It's a secondary economy. It's not the first time the United States has done this. What do you think happened in Panama in the late 80s with Noriega? He tried to cut us out of the drug money. Noriega was a middleman during Iran-Contra. Barry Seal, does the name ring a bell? So what did we do? We invaded the country, chased Noriega into a church, waited him out, arrested him, flew him back and threw him into a Miami jail. We destroyed neighborhoods in Panama to do this. When we then installed a three-man puppet government, our military helped round up teachers, academics, and fighting-age males between 18 to 50 to be killed. That's the Panama story. Nobody cuts the United States out of the drug trade and tries to remove us from the secondary shadow economy. Not Noriega, not the Taliban. And when I saw that, and when I read that, I said, you know, it is true, because think about this. I don't know anybody out there who remembers this, but if they were left to their own devices with the poppy fields out there, how the hell are they going to move it around the world if they're not in league with any of the powers that be that were turning it into the 83% of the world's supply business that it became over the last 20 years? You remember Operation Cassandra? Everybody remember that? Now, Politico broke this story as well. Politico broke the story about that John Kirby had to respond to yesterday when we were talking about the intelligence about the bombing that was going to come their way over there at the airport. You know, they dropped this about Operation Cassandra. I'll put it up on screen. I got it here ready. Now, this is why I wasn't surprised when they got the drop on the Pentagon, knowing that our soldiers were going to get blown up last Thursday. This was a story, and this is just part one, I believe, the secret backstory of how Obama let Hezbollah off the hook. And this is a story everybody should read. It's by Josh Meyer. It came out years ago, I think when Barack Obama was still in office, to be honest. From Politico, every once in a while they'll really shock you. And this is a story about how Barack Obama, John Brennan, and the rest of their goons called the DEA off of the heels of the drug trafficking Hezbollah generals that were out there in Lebanon in order to sweeten the Iran nuclear negotiations. They let Hezbollah generals engage in worldwide cocaine trafficking activity because they did not want Iran to get pissed off about generals in Hezbollah being apprehended while they were negotiating for this Iran nuke deal. That's how important that stupid deal was to them. All right? So you're only allowed to do business if the powers that be say so. You know, not the U.S. There is no U.S. There is the powers that be. And it could actually be great cover. It could actually be a great cover, making us look like fools because of the Taliban. You know, we've suffered a great humiliation as a country, a government, a military. A great humiliation has been suffered. At least that's what it seems out there in the public eye. But you know what? The Taliban and ISIS and whatever they're calling it now, ISIS-K, this bullshit, these new they're variants. So the Taliban and ISIS, they're pretty much Jack Nicholson from The Departed. You know, they take blows from time to time. Every once in a while, they have a captain that is that's rounded up in front of the cameras, and they have an operation that's busted in a port somewhere in Los Angeles. But they serve a purpose too, a big one. And as far as the perceived humiliation that we have suffered on the world stage in the last couple of weeks, remember, they don't care about American prestige or American exceptionalism. There is no culture left. They destroyed it themselves. There's no borders, despite them talking about national security. They keep the borders wide open. They know what's going on down there. They don't care. There's no dollar left because of them. There's no real mission statement for the U.S. military anymore. None. They don't care about how tormented our soldiers are, who lost limbs and friends for this charade over the last couple of decades. They don't care. There are people who do care, people like Lieutenant Colonel Scheller and the private operators who tried to actually get Americans out of Afghanistan behind the State Department's back. But the leadership doesn't care. We are the world's mall cops to them. Even the shocking news about the dogs being left behind in Afghanistan only goes so far as shock goes. In reality, you think they give a shit about a couple of dogs? Look what they do to entire nations. They don't give a shit about dogs.